Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, delighted to be putting a face and voice with the name that I've seen often in the world of comics in the past year or two, and that is Shane Berryhill. Shane, thank you for joining.
Well, Dr. DeHart, it is a pleasure to be here, my friend.
Well, thanks
Uh,
for dropping the title on me there. Thank you.
yeah, I got to know. I bet your viewers, you've got a PhD in literacy. Is that
That's
correct?
right. That is true. I do. I do.
Well, talk to us about that a little bit, man. I'm curious. I'm very curious.
Well, sure, sure. I didn't know I was being interviewed, but by all means. Yeah, I've always been a reader, always been connected with ways that text work, and comics has been a big part of that. And I'm also an educator, so
Oh,
I took the plunge. I got a really good deal and got to work with a cool guy that does research in education and comics. So, yeah,
oh,
that's
super
out
cool.
there.
Yeah. I watched your and Oren's conversation. I didn't know you guys were both educators. My parents were teachers, man.
Oh,
And
nice, nice.
yeah, and I actually teaching didn't work out for me, but at least not yet. But one of my minors was education. So
Oh, nice, nice. Well, of course, I use comics whenever I can. I'm known to do some free comic book days where students get comics and things like that in the classroom as well. But the those connections between creating and teaching are there, and I mean, teaching is a very creative profession for sure.
you, you're doing the Lord's work, my friend.
Just send the prayers, send the prayers. Absolutely. I
Amen.
have really good students though. I have an awesome group of students that I work with. Well, thanks for asking about me, but let's talk about you a little bit as well. I know that you write in the world of comics. So how did you get led into this world?
I'll be honest. I've loved comics my entire life. I think my journey is typical of most, and I'll give you the brief Reader's Digest version. I was probably as a very young kid, just introduced to and this is if for no other reason, it's awesome that multimedia exists. Like so many, I
Hmm.
probably got into the cartoons and movies of Super Friends, Superman before I ever saw the first comic. But then um, I'm old enough, as you can tell by the gray in my goatee, to remember the days of spinner racks in
Oh
drugstores.
yes. Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
there was a Pittman Drug, man, in my hometown. It was basically on the corner between uh, my elementary school and my dad's office. So after school, often I would go stop it. My dad would give me $1, maybe two. And back then you could buy, a Coke and a comic book or such. And I would
Hmm.
sit there. I'd buy one comic, but I'd sit there in Pittman Drug and read them all, and they didn't care. Uh, and then also my mom and her cousin had a combined box of Silver and Golden Age DC and Marvel. I don't even know if there was a term for them at this point, but long boxes
Uh-huh.
sitting
Uh-huh.
in my grandmother's closet. So when we'd go up there over holidays and summers, I would just devour them. I mean, and you're talking, it was well, there was a lot of Golden Key and Dale from Mom's collection, westerns, but she did have a lot of Silver Age, a lot of Superboy. And my cousin, who's 10 years my senior, would have a lot of Bronze Age Marvel, from Kirby to Shang-Chi, which I really loved.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just rambling on here, but anyway, that's what cultivated my lifelong comics. Now, that's just through osmosis. But when I really and truly became a fan was probably around middle school, discovering uh, Claremont and Silvestri's X-Men, huge fan. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
yeah, and then going from middle school into high school, also Batman was huge then. Batmania is in full effect, and so I'm really latching on to that. And for a while, and so I read comics pretty regular. We didn't have per se. We did it at one point, but I was leaving town off to college about the time we got a comic book store in my hometown. So I never got to have them regularly. So it was always a treat. But then I got to college, and speaking of my minor, and there was literally a comic shop a block over from my dorm room, and it was like
Nice.
hallelujah. And
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
so I'm just and this is early '90s, admittedly, so I'm just soaking all that in, and then I admittedly, like so many of my age, leave comics for a while
Mm-hmm.
until um, and then come back, and then that's when the authorities really kicking off, which I loved, and several other titles. And I'd actually started just writing prose. And Harry Potter was big at the time, and I'm reading something else by some big name author, which was, a prose novel. It was pure schlock. And I
Mm.
literally threw it across the room and said, I could do better than that.
Nice,
And I
nice.
stopped and thought a minute, Dr. DeHart, and said, you know what? I could do better. And ultimately, after a long story short, Chance, Fortune, and the Outlaws came out, which that's a
Mm-hmm.
from Macmillan Tor Starscape, the world's largest publisher of science fiction and fantasy. My prose novel, Chance, Fortune, and the Outlaws. It's a James Jean cover. Um, and it's a love letter to superhero comics is really what it is. I'd always carried that torch, and I glossed over uh, in my working early 20s life where I tried to be an artist. I went down to Orlando MegaCon, and I could just tell I'd prepared a portfolio, but I could tell I didn't have what the industry was looking for.
Mm.
I mean, maybe nowadays, if I'd kept in practice, I could be with artists like Kent and Lemire, and who are just not the house style. Not that my style was like those per se. Probably somewhere in the middle. Um, but I definitely did not have the quote unquote house style going on. So I realized that's probably not a future for me. But again, I always carried those love torch for comics and just love them to this day. Guys, nowadays have brought me back to the medium, like Brubaker, Ed
Mm.
Brubaker, and Sean
Mm-hmm.
Phillips, these more adult oriented titles that I can get behind and really just soak in and devour like meat versus uh, a piece of cake, which uh, so that's what gets my juices flowing for comics. So and then anyway, so I'll fast forward a little further, Dr. DeHart, and you see Sherwood, Texas. This was my
Uh-huh.
I did a small indie published book called Surrealizations, which I just self published. I'll be honest with you, and it was meant to be like a Twilight Zone slash Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories anthology featuring superheroes, or it was meant to go on with an artist who's great, Elvin Cintron. It's fully painted, but so I'm still going on for comics. But anyway, I had an idea that struck me, Sherwood, Texas. I was like, you know what? The Robin Hood legend, it's ready made for like biker club culture
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
superhero comics. They may not wear their emblems on their chest, but they do wear patches on their back. And I just thought, that's just it's a black and white, good and evil, simple storyline. And I just thought, if I reimagine that for the Robin Hood legend, in a biker gang spaghetti western comics form, it would totally work. And so I went and code pitched the good people at 12 Gauge Comics, and they at Heroes Con, which is amazing. It's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Disneyland for. Have you been,
I
Doctor?
have. It's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, just amazing. And, out of that, spun my first published work. That's Andrew C. Robinson cover. Daniel Hilliard's the artist. Ed Dukeshire was letterer. Fantastic people. Kevin Gardner, the publisher. And Doug Wagner acted like quite a mentor for me in that regard. My first
Nice.
true public comics work. So, and then, I've done several projects since. So that is the detailed but short version of my comics journey, my friend.
Love it, love it. Well, and I can tell you have an energy for the medium. You talked about having that sort of torch to carry for it, and I know that you've worked in Jason and the Olympians, and then I know we're also talking Deathslinger. So please tell us about this latest work.
Okay. Well, you mentioned Jason and the Olympians. It's a kind of a return to more all ages fare. It's my love letter to the giant super robot genre,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
it features Jason, Jacinta Mukai, and her band of demigoddess teenage clone friends. It's the classic. It's a classic retelling. It puts Greek mythology, reimagines it into the far flung future. And you've got your giant super robots, of course, but the fresh take on it is it's all young, empowered females in the row. It's available from Band of Bards. My understanding is it's a big hit on the Comics Plus Library Pass app. I may be getting those two names mixed up, but so good stuff there. And it's by artist Mattia Monaco, line artist, who is amazing. He's kind of like a Sean Gordon Murphy with a manga edge. Definitely check it out. Jason and the
Nice.
Olympians. Alex Ogle, who's done cover work for Marvel and Marvel Entertainment Licensing, is my co-creator on the book. He's local, actually. I'm a good dude. Um, and then most recently, with Cosmic Line Productions,
Mm-hmm.
an up and
Mm-hmm.
coming indie publisher. I've done Deathslinger, which is the story of Jenny, as in Generation E, 666. She is, one of the, she's a Deathslinger. It's basically a cyborg killer or weapon of war from an evil empire that we call the Fallen Holy Reich. And it's kind of like in the aftermath. Now she's lost like a Ronin, aimless, purposeless. But so she's trying to make her way on her wits and her will and her guns, and
Mm-hmm.
in the far flung outer space future. Meanwhile, trying to be a better person, sometimes succeeding, sometimes not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's action packed. It's my co-creators on the book are Ben Perkins, who shout out Ben. Good luck at RCC coming up. Ben has portfolio reviews coming up with Dark Horse and DC, and there's one other, and forgive me, Ben, I'm forgetting, at Rose City Comic Con, just coming up this week. And so I'm hopeful for that guy. He deserves it. He's been working in comics a long time. He's got like a um, I'm blanking here. James Herron maybe, or Ed McGuinness style,
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
a Steve Ditko bounce, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
I
But
like that. I like that.
yeah, his artwork's amazing. My other co-creator on the book is Keith Finch, who's also local, a friend of mine. He's a graphic designer and our letterer. He put the book together. He tied it all. He's the bridge between my words and ideas and Ben's stunning art. And then our publisher, our visionary guy who's taking the chance on us with his inaugural book, who is coming out. It was available through Diamond, Deathslinger, but his name is Eli Schwab, and he's
Mm-hmm.
now part
Mm-hmm.
of comics history. So way to go, Eli. Props to you. Props to the Cosmic Line family.
Absolutely. Wonderful guy. Yeah, I had a chance to talk with him at Heroes Con, and he's been
Oh,
on the
awesome.
show. Yeah, yeah. So if I'm a listener out there and I'm thinking about this book, anything that I might expect from it, any sort of notes or beats, or what would be in the comics bouquet, kind of.
Okay. Well, it is if you're a fan of The Mandalorian, if you're a
Mm-hmm.
fan of spaghetti westerns, if you love science fiction and fantasy, if you're a big Mad Max or Furiosa fan, Deathslinger is for you. Again, it's a gritty, basically Western in space, but instead of cowboys, it's cyborgs, mutants, and aliens and robots. And
Mm-hmm.
I love, and I was kind of inspired by that and just a lifetime of B movie sci-fi and westerns. I just love the simplicity of the stories that were told. And this admittedly is a tale of like the stranger that wanders into town, uh, maybe with unscrupulous motivations, but
Mm-hmm.
winds up changing a little bit throughout the course, and then may or may not wander out at the end for further adventures. But so if that's your flavor, if you like dark and gritty, but Ben's art is super cartoony. It juxtaposes against the grim and gritty story of the book of Deathslinger. So it all works. Somehow it does. I mean, I just love it. It's just pure eye candy. And we've got these, and it's a graphic novel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and we do between separating the chapters, we've got some pages of text, faux articles, emails, things like that that just really world build. And speaking of that, at the end of the book, because it's, kind of arguably dark, we've got a bunch of false chain of emails between me and a producer talking about, a Deathslinger movie. And it's all a joke. It's a big joke. It's the comedic release at the end of all the high stakes of Deathslinger itself and more. So just the
Mm-hmm.
sigh. So super proud of that book. Super proud of Keith and Ben and Eli and Cosmic Lion. And we're recording this. It's September 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Technically, the book was supposed to arrive from Diamond in stores this Wednesday on the 4th, but now I'm hearing, admittedly, just to be transparent with your listeners and fans, that the book may not arrive, may only ship this week. And so probably by next week will be on racks.
That
So
is the world of publishing.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
amen. I've been to this rodeo before, as you know, and Keith's really freaking out about it, my buddy. But he's been a part. But I was like, Keith, it's just is what it is, buddy. We can't control that. It's
Yeah.
all going to work out, and he knows that. But it's he's admittedly and rightly so pumped about this book, just like we all are, and just hates any little error about it. But all we can do, it's comics, baby. It's comics.
That's right.
Just
That's right.
just sit back, breathe a sigh of relief, and just let the comic do the talking, and because it will. This is a great book. Humbly, Ben and Keith have brought their A game, lifted up my words to new heights they never would have otherwise achieved, and it's just pure fun, just pure story, and I think readers are going to love it.
Awesome. 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 As the writer, I know that you have a volume two. There's a volume one, volume two to the story. What's it like to sort of trace that out and get to unfold that kind of story?
Oh, it's great. And yeah, spoilers. We do. Ben's already working on volume two, and technically, I already have, and which I would describe. It's called Deathslinger Desolation, and it's kind of like Jenny Deathslinger meets Carpenter's The Thing, if you
Mhm.
will.
Nice. Nice.
So
Uh-huh.
yeah, pumped about that. And to keep things fresh, this first graphic novel takes place in kind of a dust bowl, a dusty desert, alien town. Well, we changed the location for volume two to the far Arctic, snowy north. Just in keeping with the inspiration behind it of Carpenter's Thing, admittedly, with other things going on. We explored Jeannie's character and more, and backstory more, and then ultimately I've got kind of Jenny's end game in my mind,
Hmm.
how her story ends. Um, but we'll see if that actually happens. And I mean, the way I'm thinking it does now, because often these characters and stories talk to me. Speaking of Chance Fortune, uh, in book two, I killed off a main character, and I literally had planned on killing off a different one right up until the death scene. And then, I thought, no, this one hurts more, but it's true. And it was what the story required rather than what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I think as a creator, if you put your ego aside and you serve the story, if all things serve the story, then you're going to get, no matter how commercial, which I do, I make commercial art, that's my game. But no how commercial that may be, there is going to be true heart and soul into that work. And you always can tell
Hmm.
when like I watched a documentary on like the genesis of the He-Man mythos and how they made those stories, and those artists are claiming, yeah, we just did it for a paycheck. I don't believe that for a second. I mean, I know they did it for a paycheck, but no way that thing is just those images and the mythology behind it. They dug on it. You can tell
Yeah.
they geeked out on that.
Oh yeah.
and that's why it appealed to young guys like myself at that age, and still resonates with so many today.
Same, absolutely. Uh, yeah, memories of playing with the action figures in the back of the car on the way somewhere, wherever my parents were taking me. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, by means of a final question, if I want to find out more about your work, if I want to get a copy of Deathslinger, where might I go to do that?
Okay, you can follow me on Instagram at Shane Berryhill one. You can also find me on Facebook at Shane Berryhill, writer, Writer, and then of course cosmicproductions.com for all things Deathslinger, bandabards.com for Jason and the Olympians, and just ask for my books at your local comic shop.
All right, sounds great. Well, Shane, thank you so much for the time. Thank you for the creating, and glad to have you back anytime.
Doctor, it is pleasure having been on here. Thank you for all you do for comics and comics creators.
A pleasure, a pleasure. Absolutely.